Welcome to another episode of Wheel of Horror, the podcast where two best friends spin a wheel once a week. It chooses the horror movie and they discuss it. Today we're talking about 1992's Dead Alive or BrainDead, depending on where you're from, and that was directed by Peter Jackson. I'm your co-host Alec.
This is Joe.
And today we have a special guest, the biggest Dead Alive fan in the Northern Hemisphere. We have Mr. Robert Hudson joining us for his first film episode with us, right?
Yes, and if you could see me, I'd be doing a chef's kiss to the sky because this movie is perfection.
Yeah, dude, you had mentioned this to me I want to say 6 months ago. You're like, we put this on the wheel and finally, dude, we're here.
It sounds like me trying to convince my fiance to watch this movie again.
She's seen it once?
She saw it once and she understands why I like it. She doesn't understand why I watch it on repeat.
Well, hey, everybody's got one of those movies.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Robert, why don't we start with just your history of this movie, kind of just paint the picture of why you like it so much, how you even heard about it, all that stuff.
Gosh, I want to say it was about 1995-ish, 97, in that bracket of time. And I don't know if you remember the IFC channel, Independent Film Channel. Oh, yeah. So we used to watch all the weird movies on there, and that happened to be one of them. And I didn't have that channel at my house, so every time I went over to his house, my best friend, it would just be on for some reason. And so that would be the movie we'd always watch, and there was just so much repeatability. And we get a lot of our inside jokes and mannerisms that we still do to this day from that movie. So
you watched it pretty recently after it came out. It came out in 92, and then you saw it in 95?
Yeah, it was around that time. We should not have watched it. We were children.
Hey, that's the best time to see horror movies. Well, Joe, what about you? How was your experience and introduction to this movie?
Yeah, I was very much a child as well. I saw this when it was pretty new on VHS, and it had that very memorable box art with the girl and the skeleton in her mouth. Yes. And it also had a very memorable critic's quote on the box. It said something along the lines of the goriest movie of all time.
Yes.
So obviously I needed to see this movie. But you know what? I think I was about 11 at the time, and I think it was just a bit too much for me at the time. You know, I hadn't seen Evil Dead yet. I hadn't seen Dawn of the Dead or Day of the Dead. So this movie was going from never having smoked a cigarette to smoking crack. You know, it was just too much. It was too crazy, too gory. It just, I don't think I could have appreciated it at the time, but ended up seeing it years later, really enjoyed it. But still, it has been many, many years since I've seen this movie.
Wait, so I'm sorry, so you saw it on VHS, but did you go to Blockbuster? How did you get it at 11? I love live events, but I hate buying tickets. The hidden fees suck, and coordinating with friends is a nightmare. I always end up fronting a bunch of money and then chasing down my friends to get reimbursed. And if they flake, I'm stuck with the whole bill. But then I discovered Fanimal. Fanimal has tickets to everything, and there are no fees. The price you see is the price you pay. Not only are the prices transparent, but they're almost always lower than anywhere else I look. And for any hot tickets, like Lollapalooza, or a Dodgers game, or a weekend concert, Fanimal is always the cheapest option. Nobody goes to live events alone, so why buy tickets alone? Fanimal's patented group purchase makes it easy. First, you set a minimum size for your group, and choose the number of tickets you want to pay for yourself. Then you invite friends. When the minimum size is met, everyone gets charged and receives their tickets. If the minimum size isn't reached in time, nobody gets charged. You don't commit until your friends do. And Fanimal has amazing customer service. Check out their hundreds of 5-star reviews. The next time you need tickets, go to Fanimal.com or download the Fanimal app and sign up with code HORROR for $20 of credit towards your first purchase. Check out Fanimal and experience more.
Yeah, I saw it at my local video store. And I think it was 93 that the States got this. I'm not sure about that, but
that makes sense.
Yeah. So, my local video store wasn't too concerned about the movies they lent out.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, this movie is one of those VHS boxes that really was cemented in my mind, along with Hellraiser and another one that we never covered called Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. Mm-hmm. Those boxes really stuck out to me. And this one I'd never seen. This is the first time I'd ever seen this movie.
Wow.
And I know, I know. I'm really I'm late to the game here, but the box is something I always knew. So I always knew this movie existed. Didn't know Peter Jackson directed it until maybe like a couple years ago. Yeah.
Did you catch the Easter egg in it?
Oh, he's in it. Yeah, he's like eating the sandwich off the body, right?
And then in the ship, one of the crates has the same island that King Kong came from. So that was a little Easter egg that they were in there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as a huge King Kong fan, I gotta say I was smiling quite a bit when this movie opens up on Skull Island, and I guess this is in the King Kong shared universe. Dead Alive is, I guess. But there's a lot of little classic monster movie references, I think, that I caught, and I'll mention them as we go.
Yeah, I mean, the things that really caught me, obviously it feels like a kind of an Evil Dead nod, but also got really big Reanimator vibes from this one.
Well, this was the first zombie movie I'd ever seen, so this was my template for monster movies.
That's awesome. Yeah, Joe, you're a huge Night of the Living Dead fan, so...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I had seen Night of the Living Dead, but that's what I mean. I think this might have been my second zombie movie I ever saw. So this was, quite a huge leap forward for me as a kid. And, besides the Skull Island thing, something else that really made me smile and really brought me back is the opening logo before the movie starts. Yeah. It's from Trimark Entertainment. Yeah. And oh my God, I used to see that logo so much as a kid. I'm thinking like Leprechaun, Return of the Living Dead 3, Warlock the Armageddon. I mean, it was just really bringing me back right from the beginning.
I feel like it was like the original Lionsgate for us.
Yeah, that's true.
I always think of the TriStar one with the horse running. That one always. Oh, and Orion. Those always stick out to me. But yeah, I mean, this movie is not what I was expecting at all. I mean, from the box, and halfway through the movie, I'm like, wait, there's no fucking skeletons and people. What's going on here? And then obviously it all happens. But not what I was expecting at all. Not expecting it to take place in the 50s either.
Yeah, and there was about 16 different accents in this movie. That was also entertaining for me.
But no, I was just like, I was thinking, it's got a $3 million budget. That's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But Peter Jackson would be like, I want to set this movie in the 50s to make sure that everybody has to wear period clothes. The cars all have to be exclusive. So I was like, that's a pretty big undertaking for kind of like a not first time director, but not too seasoned either.
Sure.
Something I always appreciate about, going back and seeing early work from visionary directors is just seeing them kind of flex, especially when they come into a little money and them just using every trick that they can think of, for Sam Raimi, it was Evil Dead 2. I feel like for Tim Burton, it was Beetlejuice. And this is Peter Jackson's chance to shine, to really just show what he can do, and that's just so much fun to watch.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was texting my friends the whole time. I was just like, if you guys see this movie, you're going to be like, how the hell in 9 years later did somebody give him basically $1 billion? And they're like, yep, you're going to make the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But then I think about Evil Dead with Sam Raimi and then Spider-Man basically doing the same thing. So it's kind of I don't know. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
But I feel like it's because as soon as I got done watching it the other day, I turned to my fiance and I was just like, you can't even say that this was just some D-list movie I found in a bargain bin, because this had everything. It had a love story, it had a twist at the end, it had an evil character, it had action, it had everything. A soundtrack, a wild soundtrack, but it's still a soundtrack. So I think whoever decided to give him that big old budget in the future kind of saw what he was working with and what he did with it. So
it's a good point.
Yeah, this is the kind of movie a lot of directors think they can make until they actually try to make it, But this movie I just found it so impressive. I kept waiting for their bag of tricks to run out, but it never did. They just kept coming up with more tricks and things got more elaborate. And funny thing is, it never became exhausting either. I think they just kept getting bigger and better, with all of these incredible special effects. Just a quick note, the Lord of the Rings connection might have happened because those movies were made by New Line Cinema, and Peter Jackson was in talks to make what eventually became Freddy's Dead, the sixth Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Right. So he probably was supposed to do that instead of this movie, and then does this movie and is like, look what I can do. And then New Line is probably like, you know what, we need to sign this guy up for something.
Well, you're absolutely right too about like the effects. Basically, like they don't get exhausting and they just keep going. I mean, it starts off with the stop motion rat monkey thing or whatever, which actually looks really good. You're like, damn, this is impressive. And then it ends with the mom as this like big fat boob lady demon thing, and it's like, and everything in between. So like, you're right. This does show this guy really can do a lot of special effects with not a lot of money.
Yeah, nothing looked out of place in this movie. Nothing looked cheap. Nothing looked, implanted. Everything looked very natural. Like I was just going through this story, and like you said, just being able to work with that budget and being able to put the pieces together with other directors thinking they can do that. No.
If you have stop motion animation in your movie, there's a really good chance I'm going to love it. And when I saw this rat, oh my God, that was just fantastic. And it's like, they didn't need to do that. Stop motion is very tedious, very expensive, but it just shows the commitment level, that this movie had. And Peter Jackson is such a huge monster kid. Like, you know how I love movie posters and decorations in people's bedrooms, and the main character, Lloyd, that's his name, right? Lloyd, I think.
Robert, you don't know?
It's Paquita and Lionel, yes.
Oh, Lionel. I'm so sorry, Lionel.
You kept on repeating the woman's name all last night, so I blanked out.
He has a Beast from 20,000 Fathoms poster in his room, which is a fantastic stop motion animated movie by Ray Harryhausen. So I was really loving all these little touches. Even the amulet he gets from the fortune teller was reminding me of the Wolfman. So not only are there a lot of like Living Dead, Romero, Sam Raimi touches, but a lot of like classic monster movie touches.
Yeah, for sure. I love also just seeing Peter Jackson meshing with Fran Walsh. I think that's his wife, and they were already writing this early on together, and then they wrote the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and all that together. So that was just something I noticed too. I just love how they're still together after all this time.
Oh, very cool.
But Robert, are you a fan of Peter Jackson's other work? Like, have you seen his movies before this or in between?
Definitely Lord of the Rings. I saw the King Kong. I would have to go through his movie list just to make sure. But I enjoy his work. I like the grandioseness of his work.
Well, Joe, he did a movie. He did a werewolf movie, right, in the 90s. It's like Frighteners, right? Was that him?
Yeah, he did the Frighteners. It's not a werewolf movie. Oh. It's almost actually kind of like Beetlejuice. Michael J. Fox plays this con man who is able to communicate with the dead. It's actually a pretty cool movie, and rewatching Dead Alive, it got me thinking about the Frighteners, and I'm probably going to rewatch that pretty soon. But I'm kind of a casual Peter Jackson fan. I saw the Rings movies, not the Hobbit movies, but the Rings movies, and once was enough for me, honestly. I thought they were very impressive, and I enjoyed his King Kong. I'm just a huge fan of King Kong in general. And then there's the Frighteners and this, and that's pretty much everything I know by Peter Jackson. A friend of mine told me about Meet the Feebles, and he really recommends that movie.
Right. That was like a comedy he did, right? When did that come out?
That was like 89, and I think it stars Muppets, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but I think the movie that got him started was something called Bad Taste, which I've never seen.
Yeah.
But I should backtrack. Because when I say Lord of the Rings, I mean I've seen the director's cut multiple times of all three movies.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the Lord of the Rings are so good. I'm kind of excited for this new show. I'm a little scared.
But what I was gonna say before that, what I really liked about this movie, Dead Alive, was that every single character embodied the character they were casted as. And I was gonna say I like Lord of the Rings because of all the different characters in that movie. So I think Peter Jackson does a really good job of, at least for me, making you really feel like that person is that person, and that helps with the practicality of his set pieces as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the characters are very, very well defined. You're right.
Yeah, I really like the actor who played Lionel. I was getting kind of Bruce Campbell vibes out of him in the sense that he had this great expressive face and he's very physical. Yeah, I thought he was great.
You mentioned earlier, Joe, that this had on the boxes of the goriest film of all time. This blew me away that this was rated R. Like, I like to listen to like Trey Parker and Matt Stone's, their commentary and stuff like that, the guys that made South Park, and they talk about their indie films, Orgasmo and Cannibal the Musical, which was made by Troma, which this reminded me a lot of a Troma film. But they talk about how all of their movies were all NC-17 and they had to chop them down. Do you think this movie went through that? Because this is like so fucking gory. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Bard's Clothing. The days of "Hi, my name is" are over. We live in a virtual world, and our images are being shared on social media and professional pages every day. With over 1,000 fabrics to choose from, Bard's Clothing is here to tell your story through clothing. Make sure the image you want people to have of you is the one you're sending, because by the time you get face-to-face, their minds might already be made up. Quality clothing all made here in America. Head on over to www.bardsclothing.com or follow them on Instagram @bardsclothing.
Well, I think at one point, until Quentin Tarantino came along, that this movie had the most fake blood used in a film at the time. So I thought there was a blood quota as far as ratings for movies, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think there is a director's cut, and I don't want to say theatrical cut, but a standard cut. I'm not really sure which one I saw. I would imagine it is the more gruesome cut. I can't imagine.
I have the DVD, and I can't imagine anything worse than that.
Exactly. Yeah. I know that it's funny. From what I read, different countries felt very differently. It depended where you were with the ratings. Like some countries it was banned, and then I think in England, don't quote me on that, they were going to give it like a lesser rating, like the equivalent of our PG-13.
Really?
Because they thought it was so lighthearted, which it is. Like none of this is mean-spirited. It's a comedy. Like this movie was reminding me a lot of Shaun of the Dead.
This movie was a long Beetlejuice episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the guy wouldn't even kill his own mom.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to tell my fiance, I don't love anybody that much. You, my mother, like you're going in the dirt if something happens.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is hilarious, and it's very lighthearted at times, but I've seen a lot of shit in my day, and my jaw was on the floor for a lot of this movie.
I like a movie where every 15 to 20 minutes you can look to the person who's seeing it for the first time and be like, are you ready for this movie to really start?
Yeah, you think, the whole movie, you're like, this isn't going to get any crazier than this, but yeah.
I mean, you can take any one or two of these gore effects and put them in another movie, and it would be the highlight of that movie. And this movie has just like dozens and dozens of these effects. It's just incredible. Like, I can't imagine the time and dedication it took to conceive of them and to actually put them in front of cameras and then do second takes. I mean, this is all practical effects. Just amazing.
And it's not the fact that it was so many. It was just the variety of it, too. It was just a dead rising movie of just killing. It was great. Oh, I'm falling in love all over again.
Well, I like the custard scene, too. I mean, like, you see them eating... It's like they're making out. The custard is going into the guy's neck and then coming out of his neck wound. You're like, this is insane. Yeah, that was crazy. And then the toilet. I was like, that I thought was going to happen was when that zombie, like, his stump is in the toilet. I thought they were going to pull it and it was going to, like, suck all of his guts out or whatever, but they needed him for the end. I get it, but...
And I put this on everything I love. I did not eat pudding for 2 or 3 years after this movie because of that scene.
Yeah, you don't want to be eating anything when you're watching this movie, but yeah,
no.
especially pudding. Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, do you guys have like one favorite gag from this movie, one favorite effect? I mean, it's so hard to choose, but does anyone stick out?
Oh, man.
I think when the nurse, when her head just keeps flapping back, like every single time she'll like sit up and it'll flap back, and it's
that was my fiance's favorite part.
Yeah, because you just keep forgetting it's going to happen. It just keeps happening. So I like that.
So good.
I don't think it was I think my favorite like ongoing thing was why he absolutely had to inject it through the nose. It seems so unnecessary, but every time it happened, it was hilarious.
Right. What about you, Joe?
Honestly, I literally don't even have one in mind because they're just like all coming to me, and I don't even know what to pick.
It's impossible.
But like, and I feel like the one I'm going to mention is like Blink and You Miss It, because there's 1,000 gags just like it. But like towards the end, some guy like gets his face like literally ripped off, and it's just like the face of a skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I just and again, that isn't even one of the more memorable ones. It's just like the first one coming to mind for some reason.
Because I was the first guy to get it when they broke in.
Okay, yeah. Oh, brutal.
Dude, one of the best ones is the lady whose head gets shoved into the light, and then her head is like a jack-o'-lantern.
Fantastic.
Yeah, like that's, and then she's like, she's there for like an hour. Like it keeps going back to the kitchen, and she's still like there dangling. And you're just like, this is crazy. I love it.
Actually, you know what one comes to mind is when he was hanging from the ceiling, and the intestines pulled him up, and then he bit himself down, and then he fell on top of another zombie's head and popped it. And all he got was a headache, and it was just, beautiful.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's almost like this is the horror movie to end all horror movies. Like it's or as far as gore goes, it's like such a mic drop. It's like Peter Jackson is saying, like, top that. You know, you can't.
Yes.
As far as like extreme gore effects go, like, how can this ever be topped? It just can't.
I've seen a lot of movies, and I can't think of one that comes.
No, I mean, since this, I can't think of anything that is so gory, but believably gory too. Not just like, oh, that looks like shit. You're like, this just looks really good.
But as far as entertainment, Drag Me to Hell was a very close second.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge Sam Raimi fan. And yeah, I'm more just like, all of these effects are just like so intricate and well done. Like, I can't imagine anyone even putting in the time to try and match this. I mean, this is the kind of movie that only could be made by like a young director with something to prove. You know, like, Alec, you and I have talked about directors who, you know, have been around for a while and maybe aren't as great as they once were. And, you know, like, could Peter Jackson make this movie today? I don't think so. Like, I think a movie like this could only be made by someone with like a chip on their shoulder. You know what I mean?
So Scorsese's not touching this one?
Oh, you know what? Maybe Scorsese could do it. He's still got an edge.
Well, I think everything would be CGI now, Joe. You know, I think that's the thing.
Good point.
Yeah, so it's like anything that looks like this with CGI is just not as impressive because you're like, okay, like it still looks cool, but you're like, that's a real thing that people are actually interacting with. So that's, I mean, you and I mean, I feel like you're the same way, Robert, but Joe and I know we're very biased, I guess, towards practical versus CGI.
Yes.
But yeah, and it's sad because, like, Peter Jackson, dude, Lord of the Rings is, like, one of the best movies that, like, truly tries to, like, mesh practical and CGI the best it can. And then you go to The Hobbit, and it's, like, Ian McKellen crying in front of a green screen, like, this isn't acting, you know, like...
Yes.
So, like, he's fallen so far, but you're right, there's a sprinkle of this young, enthusiastic director.
Yeah, I mean, think about the directors that I named earlier in the episode. I mean, Tim Burton, like, I feel like all of his movies are pretty much done in front of a green screen now. Sam Raimi, I think Drag Me to Hell was the last movie I saw of his, which I loved, but I didn't see, like, Oz. So, yeah, I mean, for one thing, yeah, we're just living in a very different time for movies, but I do think there is something to be said for those young, hungry directors with something to prove.
What if, now I'm just kind of like, now that we're talking about this, what if there was like a production company that was almost like, we want you to go back to your roots. Like, we know you obviously have the talent. This isn't about money. It's about a passion project, basically. It's a production company that takes like the James Camerons and the Peter Jacksons and the Tim Burtons of the world, the people that have like, you know, made their mark and now they're kind of making big budget, massive blockbuster films. We want you to make Frankenweenie again, but like big budget, no CGI. You do it the way you want to do it, or any of these movies. I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Sounds good.
I think it sounds good to us, but I was literally talking to mid to late 20-year-old the other day who said that she didn't like old movies, and I was like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And she's like, "Anything before 2000 is an old movie to me." And I was like, "Goodness!" So I don't think there's a want for the cheesiness, quote unquote, that we enjoyed about movies back then. Because like I said, we knew it was there, the practicality of it. It was maybe stop motion, it might have been slow, but just the physicality of it being there compared to the CG where these kids kind of grew up with it, so that's what they recognize as real, whereas we just saw it appear one day and we just know it's fake. So, but that might be just a tangent I'm going off on.
I think you're right, though. I mean, I do think that, like, because when we were kids, it was all, like, drawn cartoons and, like, you know, CGI wasn't prevalent as much in film. So, like, we did grow with it, just like the internet, you know? But these kids nowadays, it's, like, expected.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks, you know? You really have to direct your kids into, like, the right direction. Be like, all right, let's start you with the 70s Star Wars so that you're not, like, spoiled by the CGI and think that it's bad and, like, all that stuff.
Exactly.
But overall, I mean, this was a very fun movie. I'm mad at myself for not have seeing it. But actually, on that point, you know, Joe, you texted me and you're like, hey, it's kind of hard to find. It's on YouTube if you want. And that's how I had to watch it, because you can't even rent it or anything. And it didn't do well in the box office. So what do you think's up with that?
It has an 89% on Rotten Tomatoes, so...
Yeah, and it's Peter Jackson, so you'd think people would be, like, looking to watch this movie, but it's...
I think it was just the box set maybe that scared people off.
That's what drew me into it. I love
people like you and I.
Yeah, there might be some kind of rights issue. I don't know, like, because it is not available anywhere. And I think even the Blu-ray is out of print. So that leads me to believe maybe there is some kind of rights issue. I have no idea. But yeah, it's too bad.
So what you're saying is my DVD copy, I need to preserve this.
Yeah, I think so. You might be able to get a few bucks for it on eBay.
Woo! All right.
Is your DVD the same one with the woman with the skeleton coming out of her mouth? Ah, that's cool. Yep. That's cool. You got to get a poster.
I found it in a bargain bin one day.
Did you really?
A long time ago, and the fastest purchase I ever had.
You're like, I love this movie. Dude, you got to get a poster or a t-shirt or something.
I know. I should.
Well, I don't know. Do you guys have any last minute thoughts? I mean, do you have any like trivia or anything, Robert, about this movie?
I was going to review it, but I just wanted to come into this conversation fresh. But this movie's great. I would recommend this movie to anybody at any age if they like watching this kind of stuff. You watch it with me, I will squeeze out every drip of hilarity that this movie has. Every scene needs to be rewound. So please recommend this to everybody.
That's what you want to hear, is from the true fans that own the DVD that you can't even buy anymore. But how about you, Joe? You got any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, I'll echo everything he just said. I mean, I think this movie's brilliant. Seriously, I mean that absolutely sincerely. And Peter Jackson deserves all the success he would have later in life. Yeah, this was so much fun. I'm so glad we got to revisit this one.
Yeah, no, and I was so happy to see it for the first time. So, Robert, thank you very much for recommending it. And I wish I saw it when I was younger. I feel like I should have seen this when I saw Evil Dead. I think that would really, especially like, Lord of the Rings had just come out right around then. Like, yeah, that would have been a good time to see it. But I'm glad I did now.
Exactly.
Anyways, what do you say we spin the wheel?
Let's do it.
All right, we only have 3 movies left. So, here we go. All right, just as summer's winding down, we got Sleepaway Camp 2.
Oh, another stone cold classic.
Yeah, so we're going from Dead Alive to Sleepaway Camp 2. So buckle up, everybody, for another indie film, I guess, but not nearly as good as this one. So, but Robert, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, for being on an actual episode that isn't just about like Boba Fett or Star Wars. We get to hear your opinion about everything, So thank you, dude.
Well, much love, and if anybody wants more in depth to talk about this, I am 100% available 24/7.
I'll make sure to put your address and phone number in the description of the episode. So, Joe, thank you again, dude. It's always good to have you. You're the man. You're the man.
Absolutely. This was a lot of fun.
All right, cool. Well, everybody, thank you very much for listening in. If you haven't had a chance yet, we released our episode on 13 Lives on Fresh Film Fridays. And then last week we had The Hills Have Eyes. So you can check that out from 1977. And we'll see everybody next week with Sleepaway Camp 2.